Hi guys, welcome to Austin Garages. I'm your host Steve Formsma, and we are out here today at Circuit of the Americas here in Austin, Texas. We have a very special treat for you. We're going to be looking at, and I'm going to be riding in, a 1966 Ford GT40. Driven by none other than himself, 24 Hour of Le Mans winner, Price Cobb. So come on, let's have some fun, let's go. The Ford GT40 is an iconic American supercar that changed the history of motorsports in the U.S., winning the 24 Hour of Le Mans race in France 4 consecutive times from 1966 to 1969. The GT stands for Grand Touring, and the 40 represents its overall height of 40 inches. Roughly 500 horsepower, almost that much in torque, it's a powerhouse of American racing ingenuity, and today we're going to push it to its limits. Price Cobb is a motorsports legend. A motorsports badass. How badass? In 1990, he helped pilot the Jaguar XJR12 to overall victory at the 24 Hour of Le Mans. Nowadays, he's at Moorespeed, and today, he's invited us out to ride along in a 1966 Ford GT40. Mr. Price Cobb.
Hey Steve, how are you?
Doing well.
Pleasure, man.
Let me just dive right into it. What are we looking at right here? What am I standing next to? This thing is gorgeous.
Purportedly, it's a 66 427 Mark II Ford GT40.
Wow.
Now, back in the day, because of the registration needs of these cars in Europe, there's a lot of monkey business that went on with the VIN numbers. So I don't really know, 66 or 67.
Okay. Now, you've driven race cars your entire life?
As soon as I got out of high school, when I was a young man, my parents took us to Spain to live as part of our education.
Oh, wow.
They used to race through the streets of Barcelona. They raced cars like this in 12-hour races through the streets of Barcelona. 24-hour motorbike races. I got to see Formula One races all over the continent.
Oh, wow.
So I fell in love with racing as a young man. But coming from Texas, other than the famous Jim Hall, Carroll Shelby, and a few others, you know, in our era, all we did was oval track races. Now, I'm not against oval track racing. Matter of fact, I wish I'd done some of it. But I grew up in Spain, knew about road racing, so followed my heart out of high school and went road racing. Okay, now if I may, what speed did you top out on Le Mans? I got to live the long track, that's a poor choice of words, the track before chicanes on the back straightaway.
Yes.
Because the back straightaway is just about 6 miles long. And you're at full song, entering this track at 183 miles an hour for 1 minute and 15 seconds. Now that doesn't seem like a long time, but I suggest that people look at their wristwatch and see how long 1 minute 15. So think about going out on the highway, putting your foot to the floor for 1 minute and 15 seconds. I would doubt that you ever do it more than 5 to 10, much less. So anyhow, so I got to live 252 in qualifying. But then that changed when they put the chicanes in, all in the name of safety. Now I would ask that, or argue that safety was a elusive thing. Because the speed was the speed. If something went wrong, but anytime you have to jam on the brakes and execute a sudden turn through a chicane, that adds to the chance of breaking the car.
Sure.
So it was really, would the car fly as high? No, not at 210, but at 252 in qualifying.
What can you tell me about inside of the cockpit that perhaps is intriguing, exciting? What's unique about this inside here?
Well, let's not forget that this car was built in an era when Enzo Ferrari had irritated Henry Ford. Henry Ford was going to purchase Ferrari to go after the world championship, but it didn't happen.
Ferrari wouldn't sell.
It wouldn't sell. And it was a sudden thing because they had agreed that it was going to sell. So Ford went after, started and built a car of his own. At the end of the day, the car is, I would argue, is a little long-legged, is a bit ponderous, but not for Le Mans. And the endurance racing, the driver has to be coddled to be able to do it for long distance. Now this car in particular, if you look at the seats, these cars are hot. The radiator's in the front of the car. Back in the day, there was also no way to sort of insulate the heat coming off the radiator into the car. So eventually the car gets heat soaked is every bit the temperature of the water in the car. So these seats have giant air holes in them to try to cool your body. You also will recall riding around this car that the thickness of the bulkhead to the engine is literally 20 layers of Reynolds wrap thick. So there's a 427 all iron engine, the thickness of 20 layers of Reynolds wrap behind us. So if you were having an accident, you can imagine what would happen.
This is part of the engine right there.
Right there, the engine is literally right there at your elbow,
and
millimeters away.
This is a 427 powerhouse right here.
Correct.
Behind your head.
Correct.
Wow.
Shoot, behind your head, literally, as you just pointed out.
It's
millimeters from your body.
It's on my right shoulder.
If nothing goes wrong, Steve, that's not an issue. But think about it, if you were to hit a wall, this lump doesn't tend to stop when you and I do.
Well, like
so
you said,
it will be coming through the car.
you were expendable back then.
Correct.
So.
Correct.
Well, Price, I do appreciate again the time and the invite to come out and not only look at this car and talk about it, but to actually get to sit in it and ride in it. It was an absolute joy and absolute pleasure.
Well, Steve, I appreciate it, but one thing you said to me earlier that you thought it was cool to ride with a guy that had the fortune to win Le Mans. But I say, forget all that. There's lots of me. There's very few of these.
So getting into this car could be a little tricky. This car may be right-hand drive, but as you can see, the shifter is also on the right side. I can't wait to ride in it. This is gonna be crazy. And as you see, I don't get a seatbelt. I'll tell you this, I appreciate this opportunity. This
Absolutely.
is amazing. And I can't believe I'm fitting in this car right now.
Yeah, well, it's obviously a tight squeeze, particularly for someone of your length.
Yes, being 6'4" doesn't really help right now.
Right, no, the only time, if you notice, over my head is a bit of a bubble.
Mine doesn't have that.
No, yours didn't, and they only did it for Dan Gurney because he was the only guy with your length that ever drove one of these.
How did he fit in this thing?
Well, you know how it is. Two, you're on the side where there's stuff in the way. Your legs would, like on this side, your legs would be straight out. Maybe
oh,
later
yeah,
on
he probably had great leg room.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, let's start this thing up. Oh, wow. Oh, yes, please. All right. So let's put this car in perspective. These cars were built in the mid-60s, 50 years ago. They went over 200 miles an hour. This thing weighs barely more than a Miata. The thing is good for 90 miles an hour in first gear, a $140 in second gear, over 200 miles an hour on the top end. You ain't gonna pick up the kids from school in this thing. This is a purpose-built race car.